So once again, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Thanks for participating. So this podcast, The Resilient Real Estate Agent, Allison and I put this podcast together because we wanted to do, just like with the Built to Last, we wanted to do something different and unique. This idea of resiliency is ultimately what we came up with, which is why our YouTube channel is The Resilient Real Estate Agent. That's why we're doing this event where we're talking about resiliency, because we believe that, if you're resilient enough, if you're willing to fight through the challenges and the pain that we all experience, the benefits are on the other side of that. This podcast today is very special because we've got 3 people live up here on stage, and we're going to dive into, what it takes to be resilient as a real estate professional. And so thank you 3 for being here today on the Resilient Real Estate Agent podcast. You all shared, some of the challenges and stuff that you have experienced within your business. So for the first question, can you pinpoint a time in your career, a specific story where you kind of got up against the wall and there was that conversation you had to have with yourself? I don't know if it's worth it. I think I'm ready to quit. I think I'm ready to give up. And you didn't. And in that moment, what did you do to persevere through that?
I grew up as an only child, so I didn't have brothers and sisters. So when I got started in business, I got a business partner, and that felt like a brother. And through the years of business, we never had anything in writing, which is really risky. Like, he owned houses, I owned houses in our individual names, but like we shared everything 50-50. And he was at a different stage in life with his kids, and he was traveling every June and July. And we were going to tell this story, so it's good that I was able to share it with you. Part of that really bothered my wife, that he's having this really cool life and leaving for the summers, and I'm working through the summers, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind leaving more on the table than him. And our relationship bothered her, and she really motivated me to say, you don't need him anymore. You can do this on your own. And that was scary as hell for me. And I finally pulled the trigger one day randomly, and it surprised him. And in a conversation, I was like, we need to break up. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we can't be partners anymore. He's looking at me like, we've been partners for 12 years. You're nuts. So here I am. We had this planned vacation. We spent $10,000 on it. I'm out of a job with my partner, and we agreed we wouldn't go after any of our leads for 3 or 4 months. So I'm by myself, and I am scared as hell. Crap, I'm by myself. I'm spending all this money on vacation. What do I do with my life? I want to spend more time with my kids because that's important to my wife. And that was it sounds like a weird problem, but it was scary as hell being all by myself and not having someone to rely on. To me, that was the scariest part of my whole life, was feeling like I've got these 3 kids and a wife, and I'm on my own now, and I've got to really support them. I don't have a business partner that I can rely on.
Yeah. What was the conversation that you had with yourself to make it through that time?
I had to really analyze what it was that my family and wife needed from me at that time. And at that time, where I ended up was how do I generate the highest quality lead that makes the most money and spend the least amount of time on, so I'm not having to leave for dinner to go to a listing appointment or to an appointment, right? So it's I had to reinvent myself, and it forced me to internally I can do this. And I had a great spouse that I was able to be vulnerable with and share this with. But, that's even men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, right? We're supposed to be the breadwinners, and that's what society says. And that was a really hard conversation for me to have with her.
Just the vulnerability, right? And really being able to tap into that and then connect is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
What about you other guys?
Yeah, what about you guys?
Go for it.
That's a great question. I would say it was on a daily basis. When the market collapsed at San Diego, I literally have a conversation with Jesus every morning. I'd look myself in the mirror and I'm like, okay, today's a new day. Today is a new day. And I'd motivate myself every single day. As a kid, my dad used to tell me, you know who motivates the motivator? And I go, who, Dad? He goes, the motivator. We're responsible, as Zig Ziglar says, for giving ourselves a checkup from the neck up. So it was on a daily basis that I was having these conversations with myself. And then what I began to understand as I studied success, it's on the other side of uncomfortabilities where all your success is. So to the degree you're willing to be uncomfortable, if you really think about it, is to the degree you'll be successful. A little comfort, a little success. A lot of uncomfortable, a lot of success. You know, I went through repo car, I went through bankruptcy, I went through a lot of things that I call it forced bankruptcy. Like I was making six figures at 23 years old. Like I could have got a corporate job making a couple hundred grand. Like I stood it through, and it was a cognitive decision that people around me thought I was flipping crazy. And when my wife was asked, "What does your husband do?" He says, "a real estate agent during 07, 08, 09. They would say, "I'm sorry," like, oh my God, like someone died. Now I have the most successful, secure job out of any of our friend group, but that's not how it was for many years. So it's having those daily conversations with yourself. Am I going to recommit to my commitment? Am I going to move forward? And I'm going to say this to you. You can't have this conversation on your own. You have to have good people around you, like Dan and Addison, like these other two gentlemen up here. And you have to be willing to invest in yourself. Like for me, it was getting the audios, the Zig Ziglars, the Jim Rohns, the Mike Ferries, Tony Robbins, like, and be willing to die to myself every day. I heard Eddie let's say this live one time, and he's like, listen, if you're not dying to yourself every day, just reliving the same day over and over again. So you might be 30 now, and 15 years from now, you'll be 45, and you still have the same day for 45, 15 years. So therefore, I had to ask myself, what do I have to change in myself to get to where I want to go? And it's reality is we have to be honest with ourselves. Like you get all the coaches, you get all the audio. If you're not going to be really honest with yourself, then that's where I had to get. And like right now, it's painful. Am I willing to go through the pain?
This is so good because really what you guys are talking about is connecting in, but also connecting to others, like community, your wife, people around you. And so, Derek, what about you?
I was thinking while these guys were speaking, I guess it's good and it's bad that I've had multiple times where, of course, I wanted to quit. I think in our business, the interesting thing is that in the investment business, I came from a sports marketing background and then a finance background. And I remember when I was telling my wife, hey, I'm going to start flipping houses. She looked at me and she's like, you can't even put a chair rail straight on a wall. And we almost got divorced. And we're really lucky. We're celebrating our 25-year anniversary in August. So I think it was just reinventing the wheel each time. And so I would have these frustrations. And this is kind of a weird thing. So I grew up in the East Coast. My father worked on Wall Street and he used to commute a lot each way. It was car to train to bus to walk into the street. And so I think it's just on the way to work and coming back from work, you have those times where you've got to just pump yourself up. And it seems old school. I was an athlete and grew up playing sports. And so now I'll still watch and listen to YouTube videos with I'm weird. So I like Jocko Willink. I like David Goggins. And I love, obviously love Ed Milet. But it's these people that are kind of just getting you excited to do what you do. And you might have a really shitty day, but it is what it is. And then I think it's also really important to come home and decompress in the car too. So again, I saw my family be really successful kind of commuting, which is a weird thing to think about it. So I think it's kind of the upswing driving to work and it's the upswing coming back home to make sure you show up and you're present for your family. So it's maybe not one pinpoint specific thing, it's multiple things, and just knowing that you can kind of roll with the punches, and each iteration of what we do can be just kind of the new beginning.
So good. Yeah. I mean, that's really good feedback from all three of you. What I hear is that it's not a thing. It's a, this is what you do to survive tough bullets. And there's no one answer. There's multiple answers. It's a combination of things. It's our community. It's the conversations that we have with ourselves in the mirror. There is actually something very powerful about looking. Does anybody here ever look into their own eyes in the mirror? It's kind of weird, right? But it's weird. But there's something powerful about it when you have a conversation with yourself. Like there's something that reminds you about your humanness, and And going back to what I was talking about earlier, like you are resilient, reminding yourself of that. Sometimes you have to say it literally to yourself in the mirror, but there's no one right way to do it. At the end of the day, I wanted to quit many times. Allison talked about that. I wanted to quit many times. And yet, oftentimes I needed her to be like, sometimes she ignores me and tells me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes she's like, no, you got this, but having somebody in my corner to help me, is very, very, very helpful. Who's in your corner, who's helping you kind of get through those times? Who can you lean on? It's going to be really, really important. And I think the other thing too is just intention. Whatever you guys were just talking about, you put yourself in uncomfortable situations and you pushed through the uncomfortable situation instead of running away from it. And that's the crux of it right there. Am I going to go through, or am I going to pull back? And if you can bring intention to your decisions, why you're moving. Ultimately, it's going to help you push through the pain, or decide this is something I want to quit. Right. And that's okay sometimes, by the way, as long as we do it with intention.
Well, I think this is a great time to actually ask about community. How, again, I think we should keep going with this. Like, how has community helped you in resiliency and maybe in some of your darkest hours?
It's interesting. One thing, I'll give Dan a little bit of a shout out here. There is sometimes a fear of joining an EXP or a Real or any of these type of deals, because it's like, I don't want to be forgotten about. And as a human need, like, we want to feel needed. We want to feel like people care about our success. And that is one thing that, I know you don't want me to say this, but there's one thing that really sets you apart, Dan, is like, you invest in the people that are part of your team and a part of your downline. And that is a community that, like, as a human principle, we all need. And for me, growing up as an only child, like, I love Becky's brothers and sisters. I rely on them. I love people around me. For me, become family, and I allow them into my vulnerability. And that's really hard. And I've learned that sharing some vulnerable things about myself with certain people is not appropriate. They don't always treat it well, right? They might use it against you. And I've learned to be able to navigate who is it okay to share with. But those times when I do find those people in my life that I can get close with and be vulnerable with, it is a real connection. It's a real community. I mean, you and I had a very amazing connection outside. I mean, just for 2 or 3 minutes. And we realized, like, hey, we're the same. And I'm willing to share something really personal with you because I could feel that you care. And that creates community, in my opinion.
I was thinking about this, and I am not the shining star of this example, but I'm trying to get better. I think that you need to focus on community in different aspects of your life. We all know that there can be ups and downs, and not everything's going to be perfect. And hands down, one of the best books that I've read lately is called The 5 Pillars of Wealth by a gentleman named Sahil Bloom. And it talks, everybody thinks, oh, it's financial wealth, but he talks about time wealth, about emotional wealth, about social wealth with friends and family. And so for me, it's about trying to build that community in all those different buckets. And I'm definitely not great at it right yet, but I'm trying to improve. And I think the other thing that I would say is be willing to change your community. I just got done and I'm very, very blessed. I was invited into a high-level mastermind by some business owners and leaders here in Colorado. And I had 2 more impactful, more powerful days with these 4 guys last week than some of my college buddies and fraternity brothers that I've known for 30 years. And it's because we're at different points in our lives. And there's nothing to take away that I don't have that connection with those guys anymore, because we had a very special bond when we were in our 20s. But it's a different connection. So I think it's just being open to changing your community's surroundings and leaning into that. And I think it can just lead to exponential growth.
So I heard a long time ago, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. For me, it's been tapping into the communities. Like when I first got into real estate, like I had a rule. If you weren't making $500,000 to $2 million a year, it's not that I wasn't your friend, but during work hours, during events I was traveling across the country to go to, I wasn't in and out with you. Why? Because you weren't where I wanted to be. I already figured out how to get broke. I already figured out how to get started in real estate. I wanted to figure out where you were, And now I have a relationship with agents that remember me as the little brother. They're like endearing, like, you made it. But it costs money. I spent several $100,000 of coaching. I too, during the high-level mastermind recently, $60 grand a year. I want to get in the rooms with people that are where I want to be. But it's not even about where they are financially, because the mastermind I just joined is the first one I ever joined. It wasn't real estate related. It's like, these are good human beings that share values that I share, family, faith, you know, they want to do fitness and friends and future. So that's something that I strategically planned on, that we're going to be actually taking my 20-year-old me are flying out next week to Puerto Rico again to go to a mastermind there where there's two guys in the room that exited their companies for $100 million. Has anybody done that here? I haven't.
You're not yet.
Not yet. So for me, it's like, I look at that, I'm like, man, how much could we give to the kingdom? How much do we help people out? How much, if I am able to tap my full God-given potential, could I invest in other people's lives? And to me, that makes me excited. You know, at the end of the day, you are going to be the summation of 5 friends that you're with. And I love what they said. Who got you here and what got you here will not get you there. It's not that you get rid of your family or friends, but it's just like we continue to grow into our best versions of ourselves. It's like refinement. We're burning off the dross in our life so we can see the shiny, best version of ourselves. And if we're around people that have low expectations, low standards, where are you going to go? It's like, I heard the best definition of hiring people: never hire cul-de-sac talent. Like, we have a we mentality in our business.
What does that mean?
Well, cul-de-sac talent, me, just I'm going to explain, is people that are like, they're at their peak potential, they're stuck, right? You want to get all-stars and emerging talent. A cul-de-sac talent person will not hire anybody in your team that is better than they are. Matter of fact, they completely feel inferior and they will bring your business down. You have friends in your life who are like that too. They don't like to see you succeed. I talked to, like, he said something very good. He doesn't share everything with everybody. I heard a long time ago, we don't give our pearls to swine. I told my son this: there's 3 circles of your friends and people you know that you need to understand. You have your inner circle. Those are your trusted confidants. It's probably maybe 5 people. They can hear everything. You have your friend group where they don't get to hear everything, but they hear more than most. And then you have acquaintances. That's like the majority. We don't share much of it, right? Because human nature is jealousy. Human nature is fear. Human nature is, you know what? When they see Brandon accelerating, they're like, that's scary. And I could relate with Brandon. When I first moved to San Diego, I was with that guy here. He was awesome. He was trying to hold me back. There were some circumstances that happened in his life, this business, that got out of the real estate business. And I remember the first day I was by myself, like, can I do it? Oh my gosh, I felt exposed. I felt like, do I have what it takes? You know what? That was the moment I realized I wasn't an entrepreneur. That was the moment I realized that everything in me that I needed. But if God didn't present that opportunity, just like Brandon's wife said, hey, you don't need your partner. You have everything even inside of you. So I'm going to tell you, my wife, my biggest cheerleader. My kids, my son wrote me a text message when I came here before I got her cheerleader. You know, I've been on stage with that by a lot. You know, thousands of people. I'm still getting cheers, right? Because I eat it. We eat it. You're always going to have times where you feel either inadequate or at the top of your game throughout your life. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are going to cheer you on. And please do me a favor. Be a cheerleader to other people. Be a cheerleader to other people. They need you to cheer them on.
We tend to call those people energy vampires. It's either an energy vampire, or a giver or a taker, right? And you know, maybe this is something that you can touch on here. For those of you that don't know, Allison's, you know, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and she deals with a lot of this kind of stuff. But when I hang out with somebody, the question that I ask myself is this person moving me forward, or are they taking me back? And you know, if they're energy vampires, I cut them, right? But then there's sometimes where, like, when you talk to somebody, you know, how does your energy feel? Do you feel better, or do you feel worse? That's an indicator, right? And sometimes you're just kind of like, yeah, that was cool, right? And based on how people make me feel, I make determinations about how much time and energy I'm willing to give to different people. Because I want, like you said, they don't all have to be big baller driving the Corvettes and whatever. Like, that's not what I care about. I want good people in my life. I want good people who are going to make me a better human being. I want good people who are going to challenge me when I need to be challenged, who are going to pick me up when I'm down, and who will ask me for advice and listen. if I'm going to take the time to give it to them, they're gonna listen and interpret it, right? And so, how might you, let's say you go to a coffee and you're just like, you know what, I've identified this person's a vampire. What can people do to change or shift that relationship?
Well, I think there's something to be, I kind of want to take a pause because sometimes it's really hard to cut people out. And so I think we don't have to just completely negate these people. We can begin to learn how to reduce how we are being with them and how long we are being around them. Actually, I will speak from my own experience. I have done this where I'm still in touch with this person, but I'm very limited about how long I am with this person. And, I was listening to a podcast with Ed Milet, and he was talking about this, and this is exactly what he was suggesting. And so I think it's about learning how you're reacting to this person and learning how to step back. And that's going to look different for every single person.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
It is really, really important who you let into your inner circle. Like, they're going to influence you. You'll rise to that level. 2009, 10, me and my wife, we're having some passionate conversations, right? And I'm in Vegas at a business conference, and I never forget, I'm getting a massage. Like, they do the poolside, like sit in the airport, we sit in a little chair. So my buddy, Rob, a leader like that, said, hey, he was a baller. And he says, hey, let me get you a massage and we'll sit here and talk. And so we're sitting there, and he's complaining about his wife the whole time. He's been married like 2 times at the time. He wants to leave her. And I'm having marital problems at the time, like some challenges, like we all go through ups and downs, right? I thought I was perfect until I got married, right? And then my wife starts pointing my flaws out, and I could be difficult at times, right? So I'm sitting there talking with Rob, and I'm kind of talking about what I'm going through. He's like, just divorce her. Like, dude, like, they don't respect us. And I'm like, so then I had a call with Jim, a buddy from my church. Jim's like, we're praying right now. That's what the enemy wants. You came from a broken home. You know what that feels like. He wants your kids to have no father there. He wants your wife to be divorced. He wants you to be divorced. This is a season in your life. It's not going to be forever. We're going to pray against that. I remember those 2 conversations, and I had 2 decisions. Do I hang out more with Rod or hang out with Jim, right? And there's going to be those people in your life that are going to give you critical advice that is either going to be in the right direction or the wrong direction. That's why, I was just talking to the gentleman who's doing the music for us here, and I told him, be careful of the influencers you listen to. There's a lot of influencers that have made their money being influencers and have no practical skills. They wrote books out of theory and they became millionaires, and they've never actually done it because they were in college when they wrote the book about becoming a 9-figure entrepreneur. They never were themselves. They became a 9-figure entrepreneur by writing a book that you bought because you want the easy way out, right? If you listen to that person, you're going to fall flat in your face. If you listen to certain people about marriage, leave them behind, your wife doesn't, your kid, blah, 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 you just got to grind for what? You've got to be careful who you're letting in your world, because the world wants to suck out all the good stuff that is there to be had. And if it's not built on faith and family and friends and relationships, and finance is like the last thing, then it's completely upside down. Because you know what? Zig Ziglar said it a long time ago. You can have anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. You help your wife have a secure marriage. You help your kids have a great, safe home. You help your clients have a great business experience. You help your friends have a friend that they can trust in a time of need. Your life's going to be vibrant. If you're just trying to always suck and be the vampire to get things out of situations or hang around people that are like that, they're going to give you jaded conversation, because you know what? I don't know if it was Rob's intention, but he'd been married multiple times and he's now on like his 5th marriage. I'm going on 26 years of marriage next month. I don't know what his life's looked like for the last 15 years, but I know my life, any of the ups and downs my wife has had, and I'll say this right to her, they were the biggest challenges of my life, or the best challenges of my life, because it caused me the most growth to be the best person. And when I show up for her as the best version of myself, I grow more than any other place, because I came from the broken family. I can dupe all my life that are championing that on, because I know that when we're retired and our kids have kids, I'm not going to worry about the zeros. I'm not going to worry about business ventures. I'm going to be very glad that I invested in that marriage and I invested in that for most important person, more important than any client, more important than any deal, when I'm holding my grandbabies on my lap and my wife's right next to me. That is going to be important. Not that I'm a 9-figure entrepreneur at that time. It's going to be that when Angelo brings home little Giovanni or my son brings home his daughter, that we're a cohesive unit and we made it through the hard times. That to me is success.
I want to say one more thing about this. You know, we're talking about connecting with good people. Community is really lacking these days. And really, I think it's about the fact that a lot of us are in survival mode. Like, we're just like trying to survive. And so it takes effort to connect, because it's so easy to just, especially I believe in the real estate world, it's so easy to just be running solo. And so I just encourage you guys, you guys are here and you're here to connect. Even if it feels difficult, it's just so important.
I saw this just yesterday, ironically, on Facebook. But it was a video called, the show Friends, and it was called Modern Friends. And it was, it had all of them sitting in the fountain and all of that, and all were just like this. And you just see the glow on their face from their phones. And then it goes through the whole intro that they do, but the whole time they're just like, oh my gosh, yes, right? It's hard to build community with Barry in a phone. So, all right, one last question. I'm sorry with you, Ryan. So, for somebody who is up against that decision, that we've talked about like making choices. We've talked about being in that position where it's like, okay, I've got to either quit and move on to something else, or I need to push through. What advice might you give for somebody to help them navigate that time?
Yeah, I remember when COVID hit, I had $7 million in hard money loans.
Wow.
And I know somebody made a comment earlier that, I think it was you in your slides, that when COVID hit, everything was gold after that. Mm-hmm. There was like 2 or 3 months when we all thought the world was ending. You guys remember that? Like, there was a period where like real estate was not going to go well next.
Right.
And I spent every single day worried about losing money. And I got really, really tired of going home and eating grilled cheese sandwiches, mac and cheese with the kids every day, because I used to eat nice lunches. That was my time to eat out. And I just I got in this depression mode, and I realized that I need to flip the script. I need to think about how do I reinvent myself? How do I get out of this mess? And I remember calling one of my lenders and hey, can we negotiate? And he's like, nope, sorry. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. Backs against the wall. And, those are real life. We all had our challenges during those times, right? For different reasons. We had parents we couldn't see. We had all kinds of things going on. And, finding strength during those times I'm very glad that before that, I had made a decision. This is all part of the partner breakup and all part of this world, that I'm going to go from a transactional relationship type of person to a genuine relation type of person. And you all have had conversations, if you are real estate agents, with other realtors on a hard deal where they make it really hard for you and appropriate. And all of you have had it. And in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you run into them again, you will remember them from how bad that conversation was, and they'll have no clue who you were. Right. And I just that's the biggest advice you can give to people is when you treat people like transactions and not a genuine potential relationship, even if it's a hard deal, even if you're adversarial to them, it really changes the game later in life if you ever need them. I was telling you, there's a famous influencer that I had a really bad transaction with, really, really bad. And he, in all honesty, made bad decisions, stole a lot of money from me. I won't say his name, but he's a huge influencer today. We were kind of joking a second ago, yeah. Big influencer. I think a lot of what he teaches is fake, but ignoring that for a second. How I handled that has affected me personally, because I talked bad about him and now he talks bad about me out there. And I never should have done that. I saw that as a transactional relationship, and you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. So to me, finding that community is treating everybody, even if they're overwhelming, and you're, like you said, distance, but not give up on them, right? You just never know when those people come back in your life and you're going to need them.
I think the thing that I would add to that is with resilience is you have to have focus. And so sometimes maybe instead of saying we're just going to quit, it's okay to say I'm going to quit this thing. And as entrepreneurs, we get sucked into shiny object syndrome, which is you're like, well, I've had success here and this seems pretty cool and it's kind of close and I can be successful there. And then you just keep going and going and going and you wake up and it's interesting. I think there's, to your point earlier, like the influencer culture and people are like, oh, I have 9 businesses. I'm like, that means you have 9 businesses that are probably not that successful. But if you could focus on one thing, maybe you're doing some recalibration and some quote unquote quitting, that might be the best thing that you could ever do. So for me, I'm always trying to think about how can we really narrow in and provide world-class experiences to our sellers, to our clients, to our investment partners, whatever. So rather than just saying, oh, maybe how do I push through? You shouldn't push through in that one thing. It's really interesting to think about what they call the hero's journey. And people just get on that journey, and they fall off the cliff, and they get back on again. And if they just keep doing the loop, you're just in this perpetual state of flux. But sometimes it's maybe just thinking about how do I just refine my strategy. It's okay to quit a thing, maybe not the thing.
So I would say, who's on social media in here? We need to understand, I have some funny names for it. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, and it's Quick Lie. TikTok, I call it Quick Lie. You need to spend the time that you're mindlessly scrolling, I've done it before, and put the good stuff in the brain. I remember Zig Ziglar said it's like this. No one is ever going to make deposits in your bank account or your mind, but they will make withdrawals all the time without your permission. So anybody have auto bills that come out every single month, right? Do you guys have unless you got investment properties, you get dividends, you get, your hard money lender, you're not getting money that's dropping into your account. You're also not getting good ideas that's dropping in there unless you take responsibility of what you do between the time you wake up and the time you go to bed. And it helped me out greatly at the harvest time, right before that 2012 when things shifted. I remember I heard Zig Ziglar say this to Ali Man during 2009. He goes, the neck up to the checkup. He goes, you need to do that equal deposits and you have to be responsible for all the deposits because you never know when life's going to come to a withdrawal. So I remember I was showing property to a client, and you ever have a client and their parents, like they might be 30, 40 years old, but their parents come in to see them that they're 5 years old again? Has this ever happened to anybody? So I had an FBI agent. She was tough as nails. Mom comes in the seat and she's like 6-year-old mumbling. I'm like, what just happened to you, sir? Holy cow. Her mom, I don't know if her mom, her name was Karen, but she's acting like one, right? She was just
No offense to me, Karen.
No offense to Karen. She ruined the deal for Dawn in this dream house. And I ended up walking next door to a house that was for sale because the mom on the door knocked the neighborhood and said, hey, you're not buying this house, you withdraw the house. I knocked to the neighbor, they're moving to Idaho. Everybody's leaving this neighborhood. They're getting out of California. So I went over and I said, oh, I know you from church. You're so-and-so father-in-law. I have an opportunity, I heard you selling to list your house. He goes, no, listen to this agent who's the number 1 agent in the same neighborhood player. I go, and he just tore me on. Anyone ever talk to you in a way that made you feel like a 3-year-old? I felt like a 3-year-old. I got mumbling, right? I go back to the office. I used to have a Jaguar back then, and I'm driving into the parking. Now, honeymooning at another office because I couldn't afford the gas to get to my real office. Like, it was bad. And I just going into the underground parking, I see the Jaguar in the front. The shadow hits the head of the Jaguar, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, feeling such like a loser, I hear it by mind's eye. Zig Ziglar say, tipping salespeople have skinny kids. And I said, F that. My kids would be skinny because they're athletic. I put my car around. I went over back to the guy's house and I knocked on his door and he looked at me so gruffly. He goes, what are you doing there? I told you I wasn't going to listen to you wrong. I just got to thinking. You want every active agent in the neighborhood to know about your house, right? He goes, yeah. Well, obviously, I get almost to sale because I had a buyer showing your ex almost to sale. That qualifies me as an active agent, does it not? He goes, yeah, you're right. Come on in. We do an hour tour. At the end of the tour, I hit him up. I say, would you take an opportunity? He says, sure. I kept following up. Long story short, I listed this guy's home over the Nundola Realtor in all of San Diego. That was directly responsible for Zig Ziglar telling me that timid salespeople have skinny kids. And I was going to be damned I had a skinny kid. And I realized that was something I put in my mind 3 years before that. So you guys are responsible. We are responsible for what we put in our mind. Right now, if you're spending more time watching other people's Instagram and Facebook dreams that aren't real, you guys are doing great disservice to yourself. Just focus on yourself. Last thing I'll say is another thing that was in my brain. Dave Ramsey said it really simple. Stop trying to impress people at stoplights you're never going to see again. Stop. Focus on where your family is. Focus on where you are, and go and get that education. I'm at chapter 12 of my life, let's say. You might be at chapter 1, or you might be at chapter 30. Focus on where you are. You need to get to the next chapter. See, if you're 30 on that 12, focusing on you is not going to help you. You need to get to the guy that's at chapter 13, 14, 15. Same with you. And just find that information, put it in your head, and it's a cinch by an inch. It's really a mark by a yard, and a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Today, for many of you, is your first step. It might be a 10th step. But I hope we were able to encourage you guys to keep moving forward. And you got to see some of the messiness up here, because none of this was perfect. This is on the other side of us saying, as messy as it gets, I'm going to mop up our mess. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move on. $7 million of, I'm calling him Brandy. I'm just like, I screw people's names up. Brian, right? Brian, see? Listen, I tell my clients, if you get a misspelled text from me, it wasn't on accident. It was on purpose. I don't know how to spell names. The reality is I've been able to get there with myself. You guys kick wherever you are, just be honest with yourself. And I hope we were able to help you understand that it's not perfection. It's going to be progress. It's going to bring you to the perfect life you've always wanted.
Yeah, thank you guys. We really appreciate you on here. And it goes back to this idea. Why is it important to be in rooms like this? You know, if you didn't listen to the tape or go whatever it was with Ziegler, like how much money did that one comment make you? And the thing that's hard,
27,500.
that's a fine. Okay. That's a really, really powerful sentence, right? But those don't happen on accident. They happen with intention, and they happen because we're trying to get better. So if you're maybe up against it right now, you know, one thing I would recommend, there's two things that I always go back to. Number one, I lean on my community. I go to the people that I love and trust. And number two, I go back to my why. Why am I working so hard? Why am I going through this? What am I working towards here? So if I can identify that, then I am very clear on whether the thing that I'm doing actually matters or doesn't. And once I make the decision about whether it's A or B, I stop thinking about it. You've got to make that decision and move. And for me, that's been a very powerful thing for me.
Don't forget to subscribe
Exactly.
and hit that like button.
Smash that like button.
Smash it.
Yes, smash that like button. We really appreciate you guys being here, for listening to this, guys. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. You know, once again, like this is not perfect. You guys witnessed an imperfect event here today, and that's exactly what it is. You know, everything is imperfect, but you know what? It wouldn't change it for the world, because I'm so grateful to spend time with you guys. I got a ton out of this. I hope you guys got a ton out of this. Once again, I'm very grateful for you being here. And now we get to go have some fun, live music, food, and drinks. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you better be at the next event. You're missing out on all the good stuff. So thanks for being, guys. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hold up.